my name is Claire Lesky and I started Dances in 2019. And I'm really excited to bring this interview series to you that focuses on performers talking about performing and dancers talking about dancing. This series is supported by the Beeson Family Foundation and is a collaboration with Louella May Hogan. And Louella is an Australian dancer originally from Mildura who is currently living in Copenhagen, Denmark. Since 2018, Louella has been working with Corpus, which is an experimental dance company situated with the Royal Danish Ballet. And before her engagement with Corpus, she was based in Melbourne and worked between Australia and Germany primarily as an improvisational performer. She has formulated a series of questions with an interest in understanding and encouraging performers to share what is actually happening when they're performing. What are some of the techniques or practices that performers use or think about when in performance? The artist might talk about a specific performance experience or speak more broadly to their performance practice. As Dances focuses on events and performances in Melbourne, we'll be speaking to Melbourne-based artists. To stay informed about contemporary dance performances and events, head to www.dances.com.au. Belle's responses have been recorded on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and future. In this episode, Louella has asked Belle Frahn-Starkie to reflect on her approach to performance. Belle is a dancer, but also interested in choreography, film and photography. And this year Belle has returned to study, undertaking her honours year, focusing on the documentation of dance. Maybe something important to note is that this isn't a recording of a live interview. It's actually the piecing together of a series of voice messages that have been shared between Louella and Belle over a series of a few weeks. And with great pleasure, I now bring you Louella May Hogan and Belle Frahn-Starkie.
Hey Belle, it's the voice of Louella here. I'm super keen to get into this conversation with you and pick your brain about what performing is like for you. Because for me, there are so many specific and detailed things that I think about and I do and I work on while I'm performing to sort of wrangle the material at hand and to read the audience and to kind of shape the live experience. But I hardly have conversations about these things with other people, and I certainly wasn't educated about how to perform and these kind of tools that I feel like I have developed and that I know a lot of other people develop for themselves with time. And I think it's super interesting to kind of debunk this idea of the elusive X factor or you just have it narrative. And I really want to break down what that actually means. So I think that's a good place to start. So Belle, what do you think this elusive it is?
Hi, Louella and Claire. It's really nice to hear both of your voices. So I'm just going to jump straight in. What is the elusive it? What is it that I'm doing when I'm performing? This question made me think about mirrors, about how you can never really see yourself. And I realized, I'll never be able to really see myself performing other than through, recorded media. But it's a funny conundrum. I guess I can answer this question obviously through how I feel and my memory. So I thought I'd look through some of my journals and notes from workshops just to cast my memory back to specific times and to try and work out a little bit what my subconscious is doing when I'm performing. And I stumbled upon these really great notes from a workshop that I did with a woman called Judith Coltai, and it was a authentic movement workshop. And I stumbled upon a definition, or I guess not so much a definition, but the origins of the word repetition. Repetition is to ask again. And I really felt that something of this resonated with what I'm doing when I'm performing. I'm asking again a question of the movement that I'm doing. I'm staying interested in the process of performing, or at least attempting to. I mean, I find it quite boggling that no matter how complex something may be that I'm doing, it just shocks me in the act of performing how much extra space there can be in my mind for it to wander or be distracted by nerves or other just distractions, I'll call them. I guess it's all part of it, but yeah, it shocks me how much space is created for those to sort of permeate my performance space. And another definition that I came across was of the word theatre, and theatre is to make apparent, and I felt this also reflected somewhat of what I try to do when I'm performing. I feel that I try to be really at task and to be very clear about what I'm doing with my body, and to demystify, I guess, process. And I think it's funny that it comes from the word theatre, because when I think of theatre, I think of theatrics and smoke and mirrors, which repetition and theatre were two things that I came across.
Your observations there about repetition and theatre sound like this real sweet spot between, quite a small and simple and graspable definition, yet also quite open and endless to ponder about. And I find it so relatable, the distractions that permeate your performance space. I'm wondering if there's anything specific that you do in response to these unplanned or, let's say, unchoreographed thoughts to guide your attention back to the task at hand and back to that clarity of your body that you spoke about.
I'm quite a nervous person, and I do get really nervous before performances, so much so that I often question why I have chosen the career that I have. But it's generally more before, in apprehension of the performance. And in those instances, I try to put things into perspective and scale, and just consider how small my role in the grand scheme of the universe is, without wanting to detract from the reverence for live performance that I have and the important role that I believe it plays. But also, quite simply, I lay on my back and breathe and just try and calm the sympathetic nervous system, and just really drop my weight into the ground. In performance, I guess generally within the creation of a work, there will be things embedded within the movement that help me to stay on task, like complex pathways, or like a little song that I sing to myself to keep time or rhythm, or quite dense movement instructions. In some cases, I'm vocalizing and moving for the entire performance, or I'm counting the entire time. So that keeps me pretty busy. But even then, there are times where other things creep in. Maybe I'm thrown because the audience has gathered in a way that I really didn't expect, or I'm thrown by someone in the audience that I see, or if I'm nervous about choices that I'm making, just feeling inadequate or, hypercritical of myself or something like that. Things that I guess feel more heady. I think I really just try to bring myself back to my physical instructions and sensations as well. I try to really see with my eyes what I'm seeing, naming what I'm seeing, and really trying to give consciousness to my physical body as well. And also something that I really like to tell myself is that where I am is where I need to be, and everything I need is right here with me. This is something that I took away. I can't remember whether she actually said these words. It was a big takeaway for me from a workshop that I did with Deborah Hay, and it I think just really settled me in performing and really enjoying performing, and in performing being a site of constant investigation and something that I can use and take energy from as a performer, as opposed to a performance being the final product of a culmination of rehearsals and a long process. But the performance is still in process, and I think that is really helpful for me.
Those are some really great examples, and that's such a good point that you made about things being embedded in the material. It's like the material itself is kind of coded with these tools that help you further into it, fail safes in a way. Or it also just shows how specific each piece of choreography is, because that coding is so phenomenological to the material. And it's funny to notice when you feel like you're deviating from the material in a way that is perhaps not so conducive to the performance, or if you're deviating in a way that's actually expanding it or enhancing it or going further with the material by like weaponizing your performance with these tools. I'm wondering with that in mind, for you, what does a performance enable physically and mentally that a rehearsal doesn't?
This one has, I don't know, I feel like maybe there's a lot to talk about, but it's really stumped me in making a work and in I guess rehearsing a work. I'm thinking about how I want it to feel as calm, or I want to feel in my body as calm and as precise as I would in a rehearsal. But I feel like that ignores the great advantages and privileges of having an audience, and the sharing aspect of performance, that someone has actually taken time out of their day to come and see me and to watch what I'm doing or the group that I'm involved in is doing. And I guess there's something really special about there being an audience, and I really don't have the language for what happens in that exchange. I mean, I guess I can describe how I feel when I watch performance, and that I always come back to the thought that I'm just so glad that is how I've decided to spend that 15 minutes, 20 minutes, hour, or however long the performance is, that I'm watching a group of people's imagination at work, or I'm getting closer to understanding someone else's point of view, or that I'm just witnessing what they have chosen to share, what they've selected to share and about themselves, and that I always just feel so, not necessarily happy, but yeah, I feel a sense of wonder about that. And that I guess that the exchange of performance, there is a shared energy, and that's somehow a fuel that's perhaps not there in a rehearsal. I'm not sure if that's really answered your question, but as much as maybe that a work is in process and you are, you're at work and you're at task as a dancer in performance, there is something more at stake, which is exciting, I think, in a performance, and it's a site of response to, I guess, depending on the nature of the performance. Maybe you are responding to the audience, without wanting to sound too mystical. I just don't feel like I really have the language for it. Actually, I've thought of one thing from, I guess, physiological perspective, that adrenaline can really charge you, like it can be quite full on. And this is an extreme example, but there's examples of mothers that have lifted cars because they're fueled by adrenaline, and that can really affect your performance and how you move through whatever material you're moving through, or however you make decisions, which is quite difficult to replicate it within a rehearsal.
One last question that I have for you is, how do you self-assess after a performance? What criteria do you have for yourself to let yourself know what you're going to do next time?
So my rubric for assessment, I guess, for starters, of course, this is always depending on what exactly I'm doing, but bare minimum would probably be how I feel about how I executed the choreography, and if it's something that's really set, were there lots of mistakes, or how was my physical and mental state tracking through the performance. And generally, if it's good if there aren't too many mistakes, but if there are mistakes, I guess, were they for the better? I guess, also in performance, I feel like there's this palpable energy between the audience and the performer, and sometimes it can feel like there's a really good energy there, or maybe there is a feeling where you can't. It can be frustrating where you can't really feel. I guess you'll never really know what people are really thinking, but I think there are definitely moments where you can tell that there's an audience that's really behind what you're doing, which is, of course, a great feeling. But this question of how do I assess my own performance, it made me think about how I really do look to external validation, and at times prioritize that over being my own teacher and trusting my own instincts about how a performance has gone. And it makes me think about how your assessment of a performance is it's you're going into memory recall, and your experience, you're entering a memory of your experience, which changes as you return to that memory. And I guess, of course, it's obvious, but you're closest to the reality when you're in it, and how your frame of mind can alter how you perceive things. And of course it's easier to remember the negative parts rather than the positive parts. We tend as humans to pick up on negative things. And I guess in a sense I think about not, of course, assessing what you've done is really important, but not dwelling on it too much, and like moving forward and just keeping working in a way that's positive to you and interesting for you. I guess back to the external factors, there's conversations with audience members where one small thing could change how you really feel about what you were doing, and you can really take that on board. That could be a positive or a negative thing, or just neutral. And then there's notes from the choreographer about how they'd like things to be next time, and what was good, what was not so good maybe, or there's a lot to negotiate and keep working towards. Also, this is, I guess, more of a internal assessment. The dancers that you're dancing with, talking about, a fun thing to do is talk about good moments, or something that you thought was funny, or an encounter that you had within the performance that was new, or maybe something that you like to do with someone that you're dancing with that's like an inside joke that happens within the performance. I think these are all ways that you reflect on the very fleeting moments of performance. But I think it's a really good point. I mean, as a dancer, I really don't get to perform very often, and it's a really special moment, and I don't think I think about it enough. So I think I'll end there. Thank you so much, Louella, for opening up this really fruitful conversation. It's been really great to force myself to articulate these moments, and thanks so much, Claire, for all the work you do with Dance Is. I think it's a really exciting project. Wish you both the best, and thank you to anyone that has been listening.